Okay, welcome to Level Up, the Career Playbook, or as I like to call it, how to be better at your job. This is the podcast where we cut through the bullshit. We give you the real actionable tools to help you reach your career goals and thrive. Whether you're just starting out, climbing the ladder, or redefining your role, this is where we unpack the stories, the strategies, and the skills that make the difference. I am your host, Brian Bell, and I am thankful and honored to everyone listening and watching wherever you are in the world today. One quick favor that would help tremendously: go ahead and just like this video and subscribe to the podcast. It does a lot to make sure that more people get to see it. Or you can wait till the end of the video and like it. But either way, please make sure you like, subscribe at the end. Everybody got that out the way? All right, let's get to the real stuff. Today's guest has built his career on making big bets and winning, whether on the football field or in the boardroom. Matt Peterson went from lining up as defensive end at BYU to lining up billion-dollar deals on Wall Street before leading finance teams to some of the fastest growing companies in tech. Now as the CFO of Snappy, he's helping build one of the most exciting gifting platforms in the world. But let's get real. How do you actually make big career moves, transition from one high-stakes arena to the other, and build a reputation as a person who gets things done? Matt is a master of playing the long game, whether it's scaling companies, leading through IPOs, or building high-performing teams. So in this episode, what we're going to get into is how his athletics has shaped his career and his leadership philosophy in finance, the mindset shift needed to crush high-pressure moments in business, scaling fast-moving companies without losing your mind, the truth about career transitions and why your past might be your biggest asset, and the daily rituals and decision frameworks that keep him at the top of his game. This is not going to be your typical finance conversation. This is going to be a masterclass in strategy, execution, and high-performance leadership. Matt, MP, welcome to the show. How the hell are you?
Thanks for having me, Brian. Doing well. That's a hell of an intro, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, ChatGPT. No,
Yeah, that was great. I appreciate it.
And that didn't do your resume justice, and so hopefully we'll be able to do that. But I really appreciate you being on here. You and I worked back a little bit ago together and immediately connected and knew, hey, that's a guy that gets things done. And I really enjoyed working with you, so I really appreciate you jumping on here.
Likewise.
All right. So the point of this podcast is I got laid off, of course, right? And how do I make sure that I prevent that the next time? And I also just wanted to think about how can I be better at my job? I was watching a Kobe highlight thing, and his preparation for everything he did in the kind of radical preparation that he did was, how can I apply this to my world? It's not athletics, but it's the career world and going to corporate America. This is the Level Up podcast. It's sports related. We're going to have sports related themes. The first one being the pregame. And we're just going to kind of dive in and see if we can get as much juice out of you so I can learn how to be better and the people that are watching and listening will be better. The first segment is the pregame. And I want to start, way back. Let's talk about the foundational years, your early influences. Obviously, like I mentioned, you played some football. And so having your background have high level athletics and finance, maybe it's high school, maybe before, but what were some early experiences or influence that shaped where you are and how you got to where you are right now?
That's a great question. So I think it actually goes before high school. So I played 4 sports growing up: baseball, basketball, football, did wrestling as well for a while, and whittled back down to 2 once I got into high school, right? Mom had 3 boys like me. She's not going to shuttle all of us around to 3 or 4 sports. She's like, y'all got to pick 2 that you're really good at. But from a young age, it was always a lot of competitive teams, not just the city league teams, right? It wasn't just little league. It was always travel ball. You're constantly trying to remake the team that you're already on. And I think that is what really led to A, being competitive, B, you got a plan where you're going to be on that roster. C, you know that you're always trying out for your role. It's not static. This isn't participation work. Getting into high school as one of the biggest high schools at the time in the state, super competitive. Same thing. We went to the state championship back-to-back years, and out of our graduating class, I mean, we had over 3,000 kids at our high school. We had several folks go to the league. We had guys go to the show, right? We had guys go to Europe for basketball. So it's also surrounding myself with and being surrounded by super competitive people, and also I'd say competitive parents.
Yeah.
This set a really high bar. I think for me, the bar growing up was not only are you expected to be a good athlete, we expect you to get a 4.0 because we know you can. And it wasn't because we were going to force the issue. It's just we know you're capable of it, so that's the bar. We're going to set the bar at what you as an individual are capable of. Naturally, that carried into football. I think the other inspiring factor there would be I served an LDS mission from 2007 to 2009. And so you grow up really fast on those. You get to talk to your parents twice a year, once on Mother's Day, once on Christmas, and you are full-time on your own for 2 years. And I think that too, what it teaches you is a lot of confidence, right?
How old were you then?
I was 19, dropped off on an island in the middle of South Pacific, didn't hardly speak the language. You're trapped in your own head for 4 to 6 months, but you figure it out real quick and you grow up, right? Umbilical cord's cut and you're on your own. And I think by going through challenges like that, you end up developing a sense of self-confidence, knowing that, hey, I can actually do hard things, right? I think college is all about discipline. I think any college athlete's going to tell you the number one thing that they probably learn, while especially like a D1A type level, is discipline. You're expected to still make grades.
Yeah.
I was dumb enough to try to do BYU's accounting program and be on the D1 football team at the same time. Professors told me I was nuts. I was like, try me. What's the hardest major? I'll go do it. I did it. At the same time, it teaches you to be, I'd say, ruthless with your time. Yeah. And you don't multitask. You switch tasks extremely fast. So it's another skill I think you learn.
Real quick though, so you did not really know, maybe in high school senior year, I'm going to finance it, was I want the hardest degree, or how did the finance, the accounting?
Well, that's a good double click. Believe it or not, I knew that I was going to be a corporate investment banker, like an M&A investment banker, as a sophomore in high school.
Why is that? That's crazy.
It's crazy. My teacher thought I made it up. You know, in sophomore class, you write a resume, you make up an education to get the job, ask for a salary. The teacher's like, okay, this is legit. My teacher thought I made that up. She's like, there is not a single investment banker in the world that makes the number that you put on that piece of paper. I was like, you've never been in New York. You don't know what Wall Street is, right? Remember, small kid, Utah, small town, Utah. I learned what an investment banker was when my dad sold his tech startup. And I got to see what that was. And then I started double clicking and doing my own research after that. So I was like, hey, you're young, right? You see a well-dressed dude, nice suit. When he speaks, everyone listens because he's smart.
Yep.
It's like, I want that job. What is that job?
Okay.
And that's what inspired that. And then I always knew growing up I was pretty okay at math, right? And then for me, accounting, some people it clicks, some people it doesn't. When I took my first accounting class, it was like riding a bike. Everything made sense. And then the moment someone handed me Excel, I did my first Excel sheet when I was like 11 years old.
Okay.
I naturally was like, oh, this thing makes sense to me, right? That's where that all started. And then I was actually going to go back east to college. And they didn't like I was going to go either Princeton, Harvard, Columbia, got all the letters from recruiting for football. They didn't like the fact that I was going to go on an LDS mission, so they pulled my offers.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, I got a call on the phone, even from Princeton, and I've still got the letter. Hey man, are you going to go on one of those 2-year LDS trips? Well, I was planning on it. Yeah, it's not going to work for us. Click. So imagine hearing that as an 18-year-old.
Okay.
Right. So made my choice. I'm glad I did. I think I learned more of my mission than I did in college. Right. But yeah, I think just, it was all adjacent to the athletics, but there's all these different challenges and then life lessons I think you learn on top of I call it the usual, which is learn how to be on a team, learn how to be competitive, learn how to take feedback. Right. But that's really where a lot of that came from.
In college, you said the biggest thing was the discipline. Now, I think that there's some upbringing there. Mom and dad did a great job. For people listening, is there something you can do to be more disciplined? Especially as a college kid, it's tough to it's
hard
to do that, right? And let alone just focus on sports or focus on.
By my junior year, I was married. By my senior year in undergrad, I was married with a kid still playing D1 football. And I was in the accounting BYU's accounting program.
I want to give mom and dad a ton of credit, but what else do you think it was? Because that level of discipline and stick-to-itiveness, whatever that word might be, like, how do we apply that to me if I'm not in your situation, but I want to be?
Biggest thing I think is you got to pick what you want and stop giving up what you want right now for what you want in the long term. And I know there's a bunch of variations of that phrase, but you actually have to personify that. If I want to be a Division I football player, then as a little league / high school athlete, Assume you have the genetics, right? Like, let's be honest, that doesn't matter in sports. Okay. Assuming the tools are there, it's a job now. You have to lift religiously. You've got to eat. Guess what? You're not staying up too late, right? If you want to become fit as a 35 or 40-year-old, there is a program to do so, and it requires discipline to do so. If you want to become a CFO, there's multiple paths to get there, but each one still has the same basic steps, right? But at that point, you've got to make trade-offs and have your eyes singly focused.
So you had, even from high school, the why and what I'm trying to do 5, 10, 20, 30 years down. That was always in your head then?
I think I was really blessed to have strong mentors that were like, hey, you got to pick what you want to do, right? B was, I had a lot of coaching from my dad on that, right? He did, I think looking back, sometimes it frustrated me. He would be so open about it. You can pick your path, son. You can do this. The world's your oyster. I'm not going to tell you what to do or how to do it. If you ask questions, I'll give you the advice, right? But I think he did a decent job of balancing that with, if you choose A, here's the most likely outcome of B. Make your choice, right? And so if I was going to coach someone right now, let's say someone just starting out, whether it's finance or early in their career, or even if let's say you're an L2 manager, right? And you're like, no, I want to make it to that next level. The next step of that, of identifying what it is that you want, you need to identify also the behaviors of those people and the track record that they have or the path that they took. Again, while I agree that there's no single path to get to where you want to be, I will argue that there is a single set of traits or characteristics that got that person there. Watch how they behave. Watch their habits. Watch how they command the room as a leader.
Give me some insight there. Is that, obviously there's discipline. What else would we see?
Especially at the exec level, if you go into any larger business and you see a successful executive, they command the room. When they speak, people listen. And part of that is you build the trust through experience. Part of that is you build the trust where, let's say the founder or the CEO comes with it, says, hey guys, this is Brian. Brian's my counterpart. You need to listen to what Brian says. But also part of that, it's actually a personality. And some people say fake it till you make it. What I will tell you is, I mean, we've all taken different types of personality tests like Myers-Briggs, et cetera. I actually don't have any yellow or green on me if we're going to use the Myers-Briggs colors. Because they have the at-work score and the at-home score. At home, I have 0 yellow, I have 0 green. It does not exist on my natural spectrum, but at work, I'm over 40 on both because I have to turn that skill on. I'm actually not an extrovert at all. But
so this is intentional, and we're going to get to this.
It is.
Now we're going down the road, but
yeah,
it is something that you have to do in order to hit the mark. It's almost like an actor. I'm not calling you an actor, but it's
when you walk through that door, the switch is flipped. And it's even something that I teach. I help coach youth sports whenever they need me to, when I can find some time to help out, try to pass on the love of the game. I try to teach the youth, especially football, when you cross those sidelines, a switch has to flip. You can be the nicest kid. That's fine. At home, you can be the nicest kid at school. Everyone's your buddy. When you are strapped up and clicked and you cross that sideline, the switch has to flip. We're here to do a job. Nobody's your friend. And I'm going to teach you how to be really, really good, right?
You mentioned you had some good mentors, obviously dad, obviously the folks. Who else would you say is one of your strongest mentors, especially in high school or college or early on in your years? And then what were some of the things that they helped lock you in on as far as mentorship? And the reason why I'm asking this is every single one of my guests that's been on here that's been super successful, they all had one mentor. There's that one mentor that really set them on this path, and they told them something, or you said you're watching their example. Was there a mentor, and was there some specific thing, especially early on, that really was like, okay, now I get it?
Yeah. So I'd say in terms of setting an example, I'd say the biggest guy I follow, his name's David Watson. Okay. Did he do one-on-one mentoring with me often? No, he didn't. Was he a very, very close family friend and we socialized quite a bit? Yes. Self-made man. Extremely rough background, literally started off on his own, turned a Sonic that was a biker bar back into a Sonic restaurant at a young age. Ended up selling a portfolio of over 60 of those, plus 20 plus Costa Vitas, all the dirt they're on, real estate portfolio, like self-made man. And just seeing like, okay, if David can do it, I know I can do it, right? And seeing how David did it. The other thing that was inspiring by him, still associated with him to these days, you will rarely ever find a person who says that he didn't lift him up or help him out. Right?
Yeah.
No one celebrates the success of others more than David Watson. He wants to help people level up. And that was, for me, something that was super cool, because you'll see the stories about guys on social media like, all I did is I went in a hole and I grind and I grind and I grind. I ignored it. The whole world, didn't have any friends, and I came out rich. I'm like, and you're lonely and you're angry and you're mad and no one likes you.
Right.
Right. Rather, it's like How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read that book, read the book, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People. Both can be true. Right. And as you work with others and help them level up and celebrate their successes, at the same time, have that confidence, the belief in yourself. Like, if everything was taken away from me tomorrow, I will tell you right now, within 5 years, I will be fine. I will be just
Yeah.
That's
I noticed that from you from the very beginning, and it sticks out. It definitely sticks out. And to segue into, I think you probably, out of all my guests, know this more, but the competitive drive. Obviously, like you said, you did 4 sports in high school, and then you played D1 football. Once you have that competitive drive in football and athletics, and you transition that into working at EY. What about high performance carried over? What did you take from the football field over to the corporate field?
I think it gave me a huge advantage. Not just the grueling hours, right? Like it's not just a function of, I can do really hard things for a long time. It was more of, whether it's football or you name the competitive sport, you measure based on outcomes. No one cares that you actually tried hard on that play. What they care about, did you get the sack or did you not? Right. Look at Garrett Cole in the World Series. I'm bummed that we don't get to talk about how he's one of the best pitchers of our time, right? Because why? They didn't get a ring, right? We're measured on outcomes. And I think having that mindset going into EY, Union Square, on banking Wall Street, is I already knew we were measuring on outcomes. And again, it's focusing on, this is the outcome I want, and I'm going to go nonstop towards that, right? I mean, right when I got to EY, some of my coworkers will remember this if you track them down. When I was studying for the CPA, I stopped going to the gym at 4:45 in the morning, and I showed up to the office at just after 5. I started commuting to the office, and I would study for the CPA from 5:15 to or 5:30ish in the morning until starting time at 9, when everyone was in the office.
Okay.
And I did that every freaking day. And I passed the CPA my first try in about a month and a half. As soon as the window opened to take both tests in each window, I did it. Then I went back to go to the gym, right? That was the mindset. It wasn't, I would see people study lunch. It was, I was like, no, I'm going to pass this the first time and be done with it, because this is what I want right now.
So I think I've told you, I'm trying to make an HR tool called MambaHR, right? And the Mamba comes from the Kobe Bryant, he turns into the black Mamba. And I think you said, like, you flip that switch, right, to go to high performance. What are some other parallels? What you're saying of showing up at 5:45 is the same thing as, well, he was at the gym every single day,
Yeah.
while everybody else is at the club, right? What other parallels do you see between those high performers in athletics and sports? It's showing up early. When people say it's working hard, what does that actually mean? Is it just the hours you put in? What else is the gritty part about the parallels that make you actually be from good to great?
I mean, it's the reps, and usually reps comes in the form of time. So that's why you see these like high performer, like look at Tiger, right? Tiger and Rory will wear out a wedge practicing chipping. How many guys that golf do you know, even guys that are scratch golfers, wear out a wedge? Not just in a season, we're talking multiple wedges per golf season. Now, granted, are they pro golfers? Yes. Is that their job? Yes. But at the same time, that's why that's their job. It's about the reps, and then second is the exposure. By getting more reps, you're getting more looks, you're getting more exposure. You are, like when I wanted to get on Wall Street, right? Because look, the reason I went to EY, full transparency, I went to EY out of BYU because I was already married with a kid, and I didn't think I could be an analyst at the time. This talk about self-doubt. I didn't think I'd be an analyst at the time for Morgan Stanley on Wall Street. I had the opportunity to. I had the opportunity to go to Goldman. BYU's a target school. I didn't think I could do both. Turns out, after doing a full-time internship at EY and then going there for a couple of years, I was like, I can absolutely, if I can work this many hours, I can absolutely go do what I actually want to do banking.
Yeah.
But when you talk about those high performers, beyond it, when I talk about exposure and the reps, we started with the golf example. Let's keep going with it, right? The more shots you hit on the more various terrain you hit, the more exposure you're going to get, the more experience you're going to get because now you've seen it, right? Look at baseball. Why do they have so much BP even in the majors? They know how to swing a bat, but that's not the point. The point is I've seen this pitch so many times. I know exactly when it's going to drop and what the spin is, right? And you translate that to the workforce. If you're not exposing yourself to as much as possible, and I don't mean sometimes people will rattle stuff off at work like they know it. Like, do you know that or do you Google know it? So there's a massive difference. There's the 5 minute I Googled it, and there's the, hey, I took an afternoon and I went down the hole on this thing. Just by doing that a little bit every day is going to put you in the top 10% of any population.
Let me dig there. Going down the rabbit hole. So is that if I'm an actual person that works for, let's say, Snappy or whatever, is that me setting up meetings with other people in the company? Tell me what you're doing. Is that you putting your hand up and saying, let me lead this initiative, even though I have no idea what I'm doing? What do reps look like and going down that rabbit hole actually look like at work?
Absolutely. And you're going to overwhelm yourself a little bit until you learn to balance it. So caveat there, it's signing up for more, right? It's like you said, I want to be on every project that people will possibly let me be on. And the way to get on those projects, you don't have to have the experience. When I'm looking at talent that's not at that, call it VP or C-suite level, I'm looking at talent that's at that, call it director, senior director, manager type level. The two biggest things I look for is competence and aptitude. I can't teach those, right? I can teach you how to do a task. I can teach you how to do a thing. It's no different than when we used to recruit analysts on Wall Street, right? I can teach anyone to do a DCF and do it with my eyes closed. I can't teach you to be hungry. I can't teach you to be smart, and I can't teach you to be competent where you just have basic common sense. That is how you get on these teams, and then you just become a sponge. Hey, let me do this. Let me do that. Let me get feedback on this. That's one of the reasons so many people will flock to the street for M&A is, are you working 100+ hours making a lot of money? Sure, but the real reason you're doing it is name another job where you might have the opportunity to sit in on 50 board meetings a year. You get to learn what they actually care about. You get exposed. You get reps to what the CEO looks at. It's not about the 50-page slide deck that the CEO might look at 2 slides of. And this applies to corporate as well. We saw this even when we worked together. It's not about the deck. It's, okay, did we do the work? Yeah, but that enabled us to get in front of the founder, see what he actually cares about, and facilitate the conversation. So now next time I know immediately what to go to make.
You have to do that work. And that's like your VIP pass. And you're right. They're not going to look at the deck that you spent all night working on. But if I didn't see the deck, I'm like, well, you obviously didn't even put any work in. I'm not going to give you any credibility.
That's not how it works. It unlocks the opportunity to get exposure to that leadership. And if a good leader is going to recognize great work, they will. They're going to see it. You're like, or I'll be honest, do I look at every single slide that is sent to me? No, I look at the slides that matter most to me, and it's an and statement. And if it's good work, I'm going to acknowledge it, and we can go have a conversation. But it whether it's slides, whether it's extra hours to grind and make sure, like, let's say you're building a budget model. Everyone has to build a budget in corporate. If you want a leadership role, guess what? You're going to be a budget owner. That's part of the gig, right? And you're going to be working fast. Working a little bit later to make sure it's extra clean, it's tight, it goes to the penny. You've worked with your FP&A partner and you've written down all the changes you want to make. Even little efforts like that, it unlocks that exposure in those reps at the executive level. Hey, can you go teach everyone else how to be an adult and do it this way? Right. and I think, I personally believe it applies to any career field. And if just add up those incremental minutes, right? If you take an extra half hour, right? I challenge some of my teams to do this when things are broken. Take an extra half hour each day above and beyond your day job. Go fix something that's broken. And you're going to chip away at it. And by the end of the year, look what you fixed. And guess what? It gets noticed. And if you don't, here's the alternative. Keep complaining about what's not automated. Then you have this spiral. We got to hire more people to do more manual tasks. Oh, well, the people we hired are overwhelmed with manual tasks. Let's hire more people to do more manual tasks versus, guys, you got to break the cycle. And it's going to be a result of extra work. And I'm telling you right now, whoever does it, that's the person that's going to shine.
Yeah. Person A's reputation is he, she, they did something. They did the work. They didn't complain. Yeah. Person B is, well, I would do it, but I couldn't because ... It's automatic. Who are you going to go with at
Yeah.
any situation?
And most of here's the other thing. Here's the thing I don't think most people notice. When you're looking at, like, let's look at your business, where it's at. Okay. Let's say you're at a 500 person or smaller business, considered SMB, right? You're not even in a Fortune 1000. Everyone there that is a VP or a C-suite, I promise you, do you know how much free work they did as junior
Yeah.
talent? Outside of normal working hours, it wasn't overtime. A lot of times people probably didn't even see it. But what were they measured on that got them to where they are? It's the outcomes they generated. The only way you're going to generate an outcome that's above and beyond, unless you got a supercomputer for a brain and you can squeeze it into your 9 to 5, it's that little bit of extra every single day because you've already picked the outcome you want. And you see it, like, it separates people. We saw it, man. We were at what, a 1,700, 1,800 person business at its peak. I could pick the square root of employees at that company, and I could point out exactly the little bit of extra they were doing. But when you look at their level of achievement and outcomes relative to the bell curve of the population of the business, 9 to 9.
That is the thing that if you're listening or watching, I do know, and we'll talk about this, there's relationship building. Sometimes people do get a level up. We've seen this where somebody knows somebody and they can get by, fine. But for everybody else, which is the large majority, it is they did the work and they did it quietly. They did it more efficiently. They did the real work. And that's how you move forward. It is not the schmoozing. I used to think I could play the politics and schmooze my way through it. And people see through that. At least people that are doing the real work can see through it.
I tell people there's two things that control the world and you just got to be okay with it. One is interest rates, whether you like it or not, they run your life. Two is bell curves. Show me the people that made it to, we're talking at a high powered company, right? That's growing quickly with good outcomes. Show me the number of people that made it simply because of politicking. And I'm going to show you the tip of the bell curve. But for the other 80%, that thick, the bell itself, they're measured on their outcomes.
Yep. 100% do the work. All right, let's move on. A second segment. This is the power up. I wanted to talk about how you transition, but I want to switch a little bit. Let's talk about performing under pressure instead.
Yeah.
So obviously in sports, it's about pressure.
Yeah.
Even in practice, people are staring at you and you have to perform. And in games, especially, the crowd is there. You performed under pressure in both sides. You've led IPOs. Talk to me about your approach in like the high stakes world where there's under pressure. And you have always been this. You've been an even-keeled guy. I know you could probably get fired up. But what can we learn from you and from your experience in athletics about high pressure situation? How do we show up in those day-to-day? And I think like even being a senior manager and a higher level up manager, there's always going to be pressure. How do I show up?
I like that question. I'll start with where I think I learned it, right? And then I'll talk about how I use it. I would say under pressure, the individual that probably put me under more pressure than anyone I've ever had in my life was actually Bronco Mendenhall, the football coach.
Okay, yeah.
Bronco, most of his players will tell you he's not really a yeller. He's very deliberate and he kind of talks under his breath a little bit, but that man will stress you out. But what you learn from him is in times of pressure, you see this in the military as well, if you do the basics extremely well, it takes a lot of the pressure off. That goes back to the reps. If you do the basics extremely well and you can trust the person next to you is also doing the basics extremely well to get their job done, it takes a lot of the pressure off. Now, when you're managing large teams, or I'd say environment where like there's times where the fate of the business is literally in your hands and you need to make a decision. And sometimes there's not an ideal outcome. Right? You're almost picking the lesser of two evils, right? I've been at businesses where we had to right size the business. But when that pressure's on, you immediately go back through that mental checklist of the basics of what is right, what is not right. Okay, we're going to do the fundamentals. So I'm going to pick on finance because that's what I know, what I'm pretty okay at least so far, is, okay, am I fulfilling my duty to my shareholders in this decision? Number two, is this actually actionable? Can I do this, right? We don't need to question moral or legal because I'm not going to cross that line. That's inherent in how I operate. The next piece is, can I bring people along with me? How do I get buy-in from the rest of the team and the execs? Because sometimes I have to make decisions as a finance leader that, quite frankly, piss people off, or they think I'm going to kill the business. I need to go bring them along so they're on board with me. You might disagree with, but at least they're supportive and they're like, hey, we are marching in this direction. So I've got the right people in the bus in the right direction. When you can do these basics really well, right? Even something as simple as I tell my FP&A analysts, you're right, we got a board meeting Monday. Does your model tie? Before we even have another conversation, take 10 minutes, do every single cross-check in that model. Then let's work on iterating with the leadership team, right? Take a step back, slow down. Another thing I learned from them is, and I've also learned this from some of my buddies that are ex-Navy SEALs, military, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
And why that's important is if you think about a manual of arms, when they're doing gear and guns, when you think about modeling in Excel, when you think about designing a team, if you'll slow down just a little bit, you're right, the deadline's not moving. We might be working all night tonight. We might be watching the sun come up to get this project delivered. But for the foundational aspects, when you're doing the basics to lay the foundation for what you're trying to achieve, go a little slower so you can go a little smoother. And if you can have the steps 1A, B, C, D, 2, 3, 4, 5 be smooth, you're actually going to move fast.
Yeah. I remember in public speaking, they always say when you get in front of a room, deliberately talk slow because you're probably actually still talking fast and you don't know it. And so many times with projects, I'm looking like I'm doing a bunch of activity and then I have to go back and redo it because I made a bunch of mistakes that I don't catch. So slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
If you didn't have time to do it perfect the first time, when do you have time to redo it?
Okay. I like that. I was going to wait till later, but another high pressure situation that I remember, this is 3 years ago now, the Silicon Valley Bank fiasco.
Oh, yeah.
The question I have for you is, especially in your role, and once again, I'm thinking of kind of like that middle level to upper level management.
Yep.
You can't necessarily prepare for the exact situation that's coming your way, but your job is to mitigate risk. Your job is to understand that it's going to happen. What is your framework and how do you make sure you and your team is ready? Okay, once the high pressure situations comes, we say slow is smooth, smooth is fast, right?
Yep.
Are you doing something every single day or every single week, every single month to be ready for those moments that it comes? Silicon Valley Bank, like, hey, your money's gone. But I remember you and I talked and you were in front of it somehow. Yeah. What is your mindset to make sure that when those crazy things happen, because they will, you handle it better than probably anybody in this entire country did?
I think there's lots of finance leaders that handle it like rock stars. I actually blame the VCs for killing the bank. We could spend a whole dinner and dessert over that conversation. I think you're right. There's nothing that you can do to be 100% prepared for an event like that, especially at a mid to late stage funded startup. You're not going to have 5 banking relationships. You don't have a treasurer. It's not like we had $400 million in the bank chilling, right? Snappy had pretty much all their operating cash in SVB, just like, what was it, like 4,000 other businesses, right? However, when I say like slow is smooth, smooth is fast, I pulled up 2 forums. My CFO Circle forum, there's a rolling email thread on there, and I just started monitoring it about a day and a half before. I was like, okay, I'm hearing things, I'm seeing social media. I had already read Silicon Valley's filings, just in case. Once I saw this, I immediately went to the public filings, like, hey, do they have liquidity? More or less they did, actually, right? But sentiment is stronger than the financial reports, right? So then I went to, okay, let's see what people are actually doing. And my founder will attest. She's like, pull it. I was like, hold on. I ended up watching some of my peers pull about $4 billion out of that bank, which in the grand scheme of things was less than 5%, but that's a decent sample size. It's about a 400-person CFO forum. When I started seeing those pull, and then there were rumors that they might not have enough overnight liquidity, that is then where we waited till about an hour before the wire deadline on Thursday. And I kid you not, I had already made the decision with my VP of finance, who has the first set of wire instructions teed up, said leave 60 days of operating cash, pull the rest. And we got it done right before the wire deadline, before everyone got jammed. You saw there was delays, people couldn't get their money out, and then they shut it down. But part of the decision matrix there, I had already made the choice that we were going to do it. And at the time, we had debt with that. If I pull this money, I trigger our debt, and technically on paper, it's due that day.
Yeah.
And what I had one of my other mentors, huge influence in my financial life was Adriel Lares, the CFO of Fastly. He's now the CFO of Chelsea soccer team. He had to go work on something fun, if you will, right, versus Tedco. He said, if your startup dies, it doesn't matter why.
Right.
Because you'll forget, a lot of people forget, guys, payroll was due the next Monday, right? You got to make payroll. If your startup dies, it doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if the bank was locked up. Okay. So then it's like, okay, we're not going to let this company die for any reason, right? My job's keep alive. Second one was, okay, we talk about making a decision with no optimal outcome.
Right.
If I leave my money there, it's locked up. Eventually I'll get it back. Who knows when? And by that time, my company could be dead. I pull this money out with no notification to our lawyers and our bankers. I just tripped our deadline, which could bankrupt our company if they decided to, and really make my board angry. I keep company life. I'd already like, am I increasing the value to my shareholders?
Right.
I pulled the money. I sent a 2-line email because I'd already been keeping our board aware of the situation. I said, hey, I pulled all the money out. Here's what I did. It's going to trigger our debt. I won't name who. I had a board member immediately fire back saying, what did you do?
You knew that was coming, right?
I do.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, but who am I more afraid of right now? SVB lawyers who are tied up with a bank getting wound up. They won't come chase me for several months at this point. I'm just game theorying this in my head, or I can't make payroll. So go figure, by Monday, that same board member says, thank you. You literally just saved our cap. Right. And that was stressful. Right.
Walk me through that. So you're kind of on an island here. You have your forum, so I guess you weren't alone. But did you sit in some dark room with a notepad and pros and cons? How did you actually, is it just in your head, scenario planning?
This was me watching the forum on my Gmail, watching the posts. I'm kind of doing a mental math tally in my head, right? And when I saw some of the larger players in the space pulling their money out and or saying they're having a hard time, that's when I confirmed with my controller that we had payroll already wired to our provider. We use JustWorks, right? Then I was like, okay, his name's Casey. Casey leaves 60 days of cash in there just in case this gets blown over so that we don't just liquidate our account, pull the rest. And that's where I made a couple of phone calls, right? I called my dad. He's been a business owner. He's been a startup founder. He's sold companies. I was like, hey, what would you do? And he also reiterated, if your company dies on Monday, no one cares what. It doesn't matter. There's no moral victory in saying I left it in there.
What was the time frame? How much time do you think from monitoring to you making that action? Because I think that the takeaway here is people getting that analysis paralysis, and that will get
We're
you no
talking
time as well.
less than an hour and a half. From the time I was like, I got up in the morning, started tallying. It's mind you, I'm on mountain time, right? Got up in the morning. My East Coast compadres had already started pulling money out, catching up. Once that number started getting pretty decent, I immediately called BP, called my controller, texted my founder who was in Israel, said, we're pulling. Gave the order to pull it. We teed up the wires, and our wire went through an hour before the deadline. For the folks that waited till 15 minutes before the deadline, like, should we wait? Hurry and try. Too late. That ship has sailed. And part of that is just also understanding the banking systems and high volume transactions.
When everybody else is trying to do it.
To get ahead of that bottleneck.
Make your call, act decisively. I will deal with the rest later.
Because there's no, part of it is I had to stick with it. Like when I got that email said, what did you do? I just reiterated, I pulled the money out. Let's see where this is next week.
And live with that decision.
And I know it. I could have, they had grounds to fire me on the spot for doing this. But at that point, it's like, nope, I made my bed. I'm going to sleep in it. I think I did the right thing. And then the next Monday, turns out I got lucky, right? I made the right choice, right? But I didn't sit and think about it for 8 hours. I didn't call 15 people. I didn't pull out an Excel spreadsheet and start doing game theory or doing probabilities. It was literally, okay, I respect that CFO. I know that person's legit. This company I respect. They all just pulled at the order of their VCs. This is exactly what went through my mind. These VCs have this many portcos with this much money at SVB right now, just give or take. Again, I'm rounding middle math. It's about 4 billion is getting pulled. Casey, pull it.
The learning lesson I think for me though is you did look for signals. You didn't just go in the blind and just
No,
I'm gonna just do it on my own because I know
there were tremors, right? The earth
you
was
look
about
at
to
the
shake.
signals. You went to the one or two the most trusted people. You already had a kind of an idea of what you were going to do, but let me bounce it off, make the decision, and move forward, and not think about it. And I think in sports, it's if you're a quarterback, you get sacked, you have to have bad memory. It's almost that same thing of here's the decision, let's keep going. We can't relitigate the
Well,
past. So.
it's like hitting a bad golf shot or striking out or getting sacked. The prior play, like the ball doesn't remember what you did to it.
Yeah,
Right? The ball doesn't remember that you hit it in the water. So that's why I think golf's actually golf and baseball, I think, are the two hardest sports in the world. As a mental competitor, you have to be able to separate every single play from the prior play.
yeah.
And on a sack, if you get burned on second down, you don't have time to feel bad for yourself.
At all. You have 40 seconds.
You got 40 seconds, huff and puff, feel bad for two of it, get over it, and get back and go back to the basics. Do your job. This is one thing Bronco Mendenhall is fantastic at teaching. Do your job. He'd say it all the time. Just do your job. Trust him. He's going to do his. Don't try to do his job. Do your job. If he needs help, he'll tell you.
Thank you for going down that road because we talked about it a while back and that was really interesting. Okay, let's go to the third segment called the playbook.
Sure.
You've already talked about some critical phases, but I want to talk a little bit more about your approach to teams.
Yeah.
Okay, you've been at multiple phases of company. What is your approach and how does it change when you're building teams as the org grows and it scales? Do you you talked about Bronco and he had a leadership style. I imagine when you guys were down, maybe he stayed the same. I'm wondering if your approach to leadership, does it change and adapt based on where your business is at, based on the size of it, based on the problem that you're going, or do you stay the same? Like, how do you approach that building and leading your teams?
I'd say the principles that I try to manage and employ don't change regardless of the size, because I think the principles work and they're scalable, right? We can talk about those. What does vary slightly, but it's not a huge difference, but what does vary slightly is at the earlier stages. So the earliest stage company I've ever worked at is a Series C, right? I've always been later stage VC, pre-IPO, post-IPO. For me, that's where it's the most fun time of a company's life cycle for me as an operator. At the earlier stages, so C, D, E, whatever the pre-IPO round's going to be, you have a little bit more wiggle room to take on more talent that might not have the experience per se, but hungry, competent. As you get later, so think pre-IPO, right? So when I was at Fastly, I joined Fastly in November of 2018. We had to go public by May of 2019. There wasn't a long-term model, right? There wasn't an S1 yet. And we had 6 months to ring the bell. If you were in that type of pressure scenario, when you build out teams, what I found from experience is it's much better to go find number twos, right, or directs that have done this before. They've seen what winning is. They know what good looks like, and then let them build their respective teams around them.
Yes.
So that you're not trying to hand them someone that's already there that they may or may not jive with or think is the best talent that they can source, and or B, hand them, right? You got to find adults. Like my biggest thing that I try to find is, and I think even my team right now at Snappy or anyone that's been on my teams in the past is, I'm going to find the most capable talent I can. I'm going to get out of their way, but I am 100% available if they need me to knock down a barrier.
That's common sense, right? But why don't people, why
People
does this
say
not
they
happen
do,
more
but
often?
they don't actually do it.
Right. And that's what why? We could talk about that all day, but I don't understand.
It's hard. I think it's hard to let go. It is real. It is extreme. When I say let go, I don't mean mentally check out. I don't mean stop caring. I say, for example, my VP of finance, I let him manage our banking relationships. Can he do it as well as I think I can? No, I actually don't think he can, but that's okay. He can do it well enough so that I can get leverage out of him to do that. And I can go take on more from my CEO to let her go out in the market and go win, right? The whole concept of leverage is not my people do more so I can do less. It's so that the more I can push down to them, the more I can take on from our CEO, the more I can take on from a board communications responsibility standpoint. I think that's probably one of the harder things. And we both worked with leaders that can't let stuff go. Like you want to have a train wreck, hire high-powered people that are extremely capable and extremely competent, and then have your fingers like this on them as they go move throughout the org trying to do things and get in their way at every step of the way.
Yeah.
And we see it. I think everyone that's ever been in a business with north of 1,000 employees, every business has a leader, at least one at the VP or C-suite level that's just like that. Versus, I'm going to go hire a pro, trust them to be an adult. I'm going to treat them like an adult and make myself available to knock down barriers. And this is where it goes back to having, if you want to be in that executive committee, being able to command a room. If you as an executive do not have the ability or the power to knock down barriers for your team, you're not a good one. You are not a good executive. You're just not a manager.
Is that let's give it a percentage. How much of your time is, you have your people, they can do their jobs. How much of your time is spent knocking down those barriers, would you say?
At least half.
Okay.
At least half. Because I got to it depends on the company where you're at, obviously, right? We're a fast growing late stage startup. And when I say knocking down barriers, I don't mean running through people, right? What I mean is making sure we're bringing people along or when you think about playing chess, not checkers, okay, I know the outcome I need long-term. How do I make it so that cross-functionally others understand that long-term outcome and how it benefits them? That's where I can go be impactful because let's be honest, when a CEO, CFO, COO shows up to a meeting they don't normally attend, there's usually some if they know you're coming, there's some anticipation, it's weird. Humans are, we all put our pants on one leg at a time, man. Like, I don't think I'm any better than anybody else. But we've all been in that experience where the founder's coming in or this board member's coming in. It does step up a level of urgency and stress. A good executive needs to use that to command the room and make sure that the outcome is knocking down that wall for your team while still making sure that cross-functionally everyone's marching in the right direction. That's where you can be really effective as a leader so that your team can just keep humming and keep that momentum going. The other piece of that is if you can't identify those outcomes that need to be done and then hold people to the outcomes, you're a bad leader. There's no bad teams, man. You are a bad leader if your team is just discombobulated. It's like herding cats. Everyone's stressed. They're reacting to fire drill after fire drill after fire drill. If your team perpetually has fire drills, it's your fault.
That's the point of you being a leader. And you've said this from the very beginning of when we started talking. I probably would count at least a dozen times. What outcome are you trying to drive? But to your point, your job as a leader is to make sure everybody understands that outcome and everybody's going that same direction.
Yes.
Is that something that is that a daily thing? How are you reminding, what are you doing to remind the people?
Every single day. So I have and we used it a little bit at our last roles together. I didn't invent this. I don't want credit for it. I tweaked it a bit. I learned about this. I first used it about 8 or 9 years ago. We used it again at our last place we worked together. It's a top 3 framework, right? Where I'll be the first to tell you, I hate OKRs. I think they're the biggest waste of time. Here's how OKRs work. You spend hours and hours and hours, $1 million meetings when you add up the salary to create a big old spreadsheet. And no one looks at it till the day before the QBR. Because they're not paid to care. However, the top 3 framework, I'll call it mine because I've been using it, and we actually use it for all of Snappy for 2025 now, not just my teams.
I love it.
Humans can't work on 10 things at a time. You want to piss me off? Come to a meeting with 10 things, 10% done.
Yeah.
And if you have 10 priorities, nothing's priority. Okay. Rather, go figure, all the research, our brains work in 3s at most. That's just how we are. That's okay. Use that as a strength. There's 3 outcomes that I want. And so I'll give you an example of what I do with my FP&A team and my accounting team and my IT team. Every month, we list out our top 3 initiatives for the month. These top 3 initiatives have to be aligned to support the top 3 of finance as a whole, like my work, and the company as a whole, right? All the way down to the individual, you have your top 3. The outcome is measurable and binary, has a deadline. Did you or did you not do it? Why?
So is it It's binary. That's it. It's not a
It's did you or did you not?
2%. Okay.
No, we don't do percents. It's did you or did you not? And it's measured. What's great too is if there's a cross-functional dependency, you are not allowed to put that as one of your top three unless you name the cross-functional dependency and they have agreed to help you deliver that outcome by that deadline.
That is
Which
huge.
means
So
it's going to be one of their top three as well.
you can't pawn it off and be like, it wasn't my.
Nope. And then when you come to me, right, and we talk about doing the top three, there is, how do I put it? I'll say it simpler. You're not allowed to work on anything outside of your top three without my permission, in addition to your day job. If RevOps comes to my FP&A team and says, hey, I need another quota model built, can you do it tonight? Talk to me.
Now, I would love that because that's how everybody gets stretched thin and nothing gets done. And I don't know where my lanes are. That makes it so much easier for everybody else when they have the freedom to be like, hey, you got to go talk to Matt, man, because.
No, because here's the thing is if I find out you did and it cost you one of your top three, we're going to have a conversation, right? It doesn't mean we can't help our teammates. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to communicate because what I'm not going to have is my team respond to fire drills and then not get the outcomes we agreed to get for this month. And can a top three extend over more than 1 month? Absolutely. That's fine. But at the same time, think about how reviews go for my teams. It's a rolling dock. And guess what? You send it out to your everyone has like a exec committee. Everyone has like a leadership committee, right? Where it's more like the director and up. We send it to that group every month.
Yeah.
And then we roll it forward. Yes, we did it. Here's what's next. Okay. And I look at it, start of the month. I check in with my people mid-month and we report on the outcomes to our groups and hold ourselves accountable at the end of the month. And when I do reviews, it's easy because I just look at these 36 things you did this year.
And you could do your own review yourself. But let's talk about the other side of this, the accountability side. I did not make the mark 2 months in a row. What are you as a leader doing when your people aren't making the mark? Obviously, you're hiring great people that will hit the mark. It doesn't always happen. So
sometimes we miss. Yeah, sometimes we didn't do it.
What happens when you miss? How do you respond to that?
We write down why. First one is what did we do to enable it to the miss to happen? So it's introspection. And then I say we, not you. How do we enable the opportunity for the miss or the problem to happen? So let's kind of dissect what happened there. Let's then look at were there external factors? I'm not a robot. I know life happens. Okay. Let's figure out were there external factors on that? And then let's reevaluate how we're setting our goals or our top three. Were we too ambitious in our timeline? Was there an unforeseen dependency that we didn't plan it out? We didn't slow down enough to plan this out thoughtfully before we did it. So did that cause us to miss, right? Were we blind to something? I'm not going to come and hit my team with a hammer, right? It's rather, let's figure this piece out because the real goal of this exercise is by the end of the year, I've chipped away at 30 plus of the largest problems that I have as a org. And eventually the problems you start chasing for your top three, you know, you're in a good spot when your team has a hard time finding it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Right? Because everyone has a million things they got to do. I call it a big rocks list. Anyone that's worked for me knows they have one. Everyone comes to me with problems. I'm like, just write them down. What do you mean? Literally open a Google sheet or an Excel, write them down. Well, what are we doing for our top three? Well, what's most important on that list right now that you can do? And it's cool because you see these big rocks lists, they condense. And then when you get to that next stage of growth, like, okay, now we're going to go pre-IPO or, hey, now we're public. We got to do all the post-IPOs. The list expands. But then what it forces people to do is you've created scarcity. You only get three. You created a timeline, right? So people have to prioritize what is actually doable right now. Okay. And it's only what matters most right now. And what I found is that while it's so much simpler than an OKR framework, it is effective, man. I've used it in businesses with 22 people that I've invested in. I've used it in businesses that have 1,800.
And I remember, your teams got shit done.
We published it too. And then what's nice is because we talked about like cross-functional communication. Was there ever a question what my team was working on at any given?
No, that's actually very, and everybody knew about it, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Right. It's funny, like you look at outside of work with our lives, when we hold ourselves publicly accountable, right? We're not doing it for validation from others, but when we hold ourselves accountable to others, the outcomes are drastically different than when they're not, more generally speaking, right? But we've been doing that for about 2 years at Snappy. And when you just look at the sheer output of the team, like I'm incredibly proud of our team, what they do. And I also think it builds a ton of confidence with your team because, like you said, you write your own review. I mean, imagine being a staff accountant, like, holy cow, I did 36 things that helped change.
Right. You're getting monthly wins versus quarterly wins. Also, there's that cadence as well.
Yeah. And then we talk about how people level up. It's based on the outcomes.
Deliver outcomes, not all the fluffy stuff. Yes. Let me move on because we're almost at the end of this.
Sure.
Running out of time already. I want to talk really quickly in the next segment is game day rituals.
Okay.
You're an athlete. Let's talk about, going to the boardroom. What are you doing to prepare for the day? I try all the different supplements. I'm back to exercising. I know I have to calendaring. What does your day look like in your week? Like how are you setting yourself up every single day? What are you doing to maintain that peak performance?
Yeah, that's a great question. First thing I'll tell you that I don't wake up at 3 a.m. and take an ice cold shower. And nope, I don't.
Okay.
I just do the basics, but I try to do them extremely well. And I know that sounds cliche, but I'll explain what I do. On the weekend, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, I look at my Google Calendar and I make sure that I eliminate all the double bookings and I move stuff around so that it makes sense based on what I know that's coming down the pipe that week. Number two is I make sure I have time in the morning to get my mind right and get prepared for the day so that I'm not going into blind to any meetings. And I try to ping people to send me stuff ahead of that meeting so that when I go to that meeting, I can make a decision or give feedback. I don't go to meetings for FYIs. It's a waste of everyone's time. Just send me an email. Okay. The next thing we're talking about a daily ritual. When I'm not traveling, travel kind of throws stuff, a wrench in things. But let's say like I'm at home eating team. I'm up and have eaten and I'm on my way to the gym by 5:15.
At 5:15?
5:15 in the morning. And I learned that in football. I've been doing this routine since 2007. I'm lifting weights by 5:30.
How long are you working out for?
I typically lift for just over an hour, like hour and 15. We go hard and heavy. And then I will do whether it's steady state or things zone 2, right? Or I'll do HIIT for a shorter interval. If I do the steady state, I'll be at the gym for 2 hours. If not, then I will be done with the HIIT cardio in 15 minutes or so. I do it every day.
Every day. Weekends?
Even weekends. I don't do it on Sundays, but if I have travel baseball with my kids or something, I can't, then I won't. Monday to Friday, every day. The fountain of youth can be found under a barbell, is what I tell people. Okay. And you need that out, right? And I tell people all the time, lift heavy, get your heart rate up, you will have more energy. You're not going to feel like no one's ever come out of the gym after a heavy lifting session saying, man, I sure regret that I didn't sleep in today.
That's true.
It's like, no, my body's awake. I'm ready to go. I've already prepped my week, so I know what's going on. And usually every evening as well, I'll double check my calendar. It only takes 5 minutes. Does anything tomorrow not make sense?
For the longest time, I would not work out and I'd find an excuse, but it would be in my brain every single day. I didn't do it. I didn't work out. I didn't work. And then when you do it, you're like, I got that out the way. I feel so much better.
You'll feel better. You'll
Every
sleep
single
better.
high performer that I've met, they work out, they exercise, they run, they do something. It's just locked in, especially as you get older, you have to. But
you have to. I'm not kidding. The fountain of youth is under a barbell.
Yeah.
People just don't want to go look there, right? And then in terms of supplementation, right? I'm very basic. High quality multivitamin, creatine monohydrate, ubiquinol, omega-3.
What's ubiquinol?
Ubiquinol. Yep.
What's that?
I'll send you a link. It's part of the CoQ10 enzyme with quercetin and whatnot, right? That's one of the key ingredients. And then I'll supplement with vitamin D.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. I don't, in terms of diet, when I'm being good, which I need to hold myself more accountable so I can get rid of what's left of my dad bod, right? Is macros. Macros will always work. It's not magic. It's just math. You don't need to go on any crazy diet. And what I've learned over the past 5 years, I actually had a bodybuilding coach for half a decade.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Never take diet and fitness advice from somebody you don't want to look like. Go take it. It's like taking investing advice from a poor person. right?
Right.
Don't do it. I learned that bodybuilders have been using macros for 40 plus years. And the nice thing is the way they eat, well, not when they're cutting for a show, but their day-to-day diet. You can eat that the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's just that, right?
Keep it simple, but keep it consistent. All right. Let's close this out. This is the closing segment. It's a 2-minute drill, and I want to give you a chance to plug.
Yeah.
Couple quick questions, quick answers.
Yeah.
First thing you do every morning when you wake up to set yourself up for success, that was, what are you doing when you
go to the gym?
Wake up? Eat and go to the gym.
Eat and go to the gym. Nothing else. I don't check my phone. Don't play on it. I eat and I go to the gym.
Okay. What's the most valuable tool for continuing growth for somebody that's like, I want to be like Matt one day? What's the most valuable thing you think that they should focus on to grow?
Biggest thing I think you can focus on to grow is experience with actual happenings in business. Whether you're reading case studies like HBS case studies, you're reading financial outcomes, reading court cases, you've got to read and go down that rabbit hole. I'm not talking about Google. I'm saying if there's an investment case that you want to pull up for a tech company, or you think you want to go do a leverage buyout or a roll up, you better know everything you could possibly know about that thing before you even try to go down that path. And I'm not saying analysis paralysis, but I'm saying you should be smart enough on the subject so that you can have an intelligent conversation.
What's a non-negotiable principle that guides every one of your decisions?
I'm not going to do something that's immoral or dishonest. Life's too short. I'm at the point now, if I have to even question the gray area, I'm just not going to do it.
Good. Yeah. Last one. What excites you the most about 2025?
Oh, man. There's a lot to be excited about. Biggest thing for me is, look, it's been a bit rough for tech the last few years. It's been a bit rough for capital markets. It's been a bit rough for buyouts. And I think 92% of LBOs now are done with private debt. Guys, there's $6+ trillion sitting on the sideline of money markets right now that are about to get put to work in the next year. We have a lot to be excited about.
It's good to hear. That's optimism when a lot of people are not being so optimistic. All right, Matt, this has been amazing. There's a billion pieces of information here that I'm excited to go back and do. I thank you so much.
Of course.
Last piece, tell me about Snappy. What are you up to? Is there any other plugs or any other people or any things that be good for other people to know?
We're an enterprise gifting platform. I think we've solved the gifting issues, whether it's employee, client, prospect. Let's put it this way. When certain large e-commerce companies ran by a Chad with the first name Jeff want to send gifts to their employees, they don't use gift cards. Gift cards are lame. They use us, right? So I would highly suggest folks check us out. We're already serving most Fortune 100. It's a fun business. We work really hard. We're growing quickly. And I think we're on to something. So I'm pretty cool.
It's a good platform. I've used it. It's snappy.com.
Snappy.com. Yep.
Yeah. All right, Matt, this has been amazing. Once again, this is Brian Bell, the Level Up Podcast. Thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll talk to you next time.